Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our inaugural show, Beyond the Goalposts, Jefferson County edition, with host Lee Freeman. I'm Jeff Whitener for Livestream STL, and we hope to be bringing you some very insightful topics from the world of football. Our first show this season, our inaugural show, Lee, sponsored by Lee's Lawn and Landscaping, offering you landscape remodels and renovation, lawn care, mulch, and rock applications, excavation, and more. Give Lee's Lawn and Landscaping a call. Before we start, I want to introduce our esteemed panel here. To my immediate left, we have Coach Lee Freeman, who will be our facilitator. And Coach Freeman was hired as the head coach of Windsor High School April 2024. Prior to coaching at Windsor, he was at Hillsborough from 2014 to 2019. And during his time at Hillsborough, he led the Hawks to a district championship in 2017. And an overall record of 45-26, including going 7-1 against the rival Festus Tigers. Pretty good there. Lee's a graduate of Hillsborough High School and Southeast Missouri State, and played football for both. He's also the business owner, being the owner-operator of the aforementioned Lee's Lawns and Landscapes. To his left, we have Coach Judd Naeger from the Valley Catholic Warriors. Coach Naeger is a teacher and coach at Valley Catholic since 2001. As head coach of the Warriors football team, his teams have won multiple state championships under his tenure. He's a 2024 Missouri Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame inductee, and also the recipient of the Missouri Football Coaches Association Atkins Award in 2018. Coach Naeger is a 96 graduate of Valley Catholic, won 2 state championships as a player as well, and has established himself as a very highly respected and successful head coach at Valley Catholic High School, and has helped continue the program's long tradition of excellence there. To his left, we have Coach Brent Tinker, head football coach of the Fox Warriors. Coach Tinker has been associated with Fox program for a significant period of time. He served as defensive coordinator for 3 seasons before becoming the head coach in the summer of 2011. He is our longest serving head football coach in Jefferson County. I believe this is 14 seasons, I believe, Coach?
Yeah, I believe next one's 15.
15, yeah. And under Coach Tinker's leadership, the Fox Warriors reached the Class 6 semifinals in 2020 for only the second time in school's history. So that's the information on our esteemed panel up here. We've got a lot of experience in the coaching ranks and a lot of good subjects to talk about. But Lee, what do we have opening up this week?
We were going to discuss the Southeast Missouri Area Football Coaches Association and kind of the reestablishment of that, if you will. And that's where Coach Judd Naeger is going to come in. And he has been, I don't know if he was nominated or through the process, but he was he got put in charge of mediating, I guess. Some of those things that have kind of gone by the wayside, or wanted people to reevaluate and reassess and kind of look at getting some awards established for players and coaches, and really just promoting football, in the Southeast Missouri area, as well as the Jefferson County area and surrounding football teams. So that's why I thought we'd start beyond the goalposts with this episode and kind of get everybody caught up to speed on what's happening in the area, and with Coach Tinker being one of my longtime friends, conversation usually happens pretty easy, and the three of us know each other. Those guys have had a relationship before I knew them, and not Coach Tinker, but before I knew Coach Naeger, and so I feel like there's between the two of those guys, there's a lot of knowledge up here. So we'll try to get through and make an interesting show.
Now, Lee, before we talking about the football conference awards, and maybe Coach Naeger can fill us in a little bit on the history of the awards and kind of maybe some of the changes that have gone through the last couple of years and why we're trying to put an emphasis on revitalizing them.
Yeah, Coach Bob Stelzer and Coach Kent Gibbs, we're kind of the guys to really get things rolling, way back at the beginning of my career. And we did a really good job with things, and we had some meetings, and, we had some clinics down there at the casino in Cape. And, had some good stuff going on, and there for a while we would meet to decide on the teams, and then it got to where we kind of did it over email, and then the last few years we've just kind of everybody got so many kids to put on the team based on how you finished at the end of the year, and we kind of threw it together at the last second this year, just so we could have something for the kids, and I just felt like it was an opportunity to kind of step in and get some more guys involved in our area, and maybe try to revamp the thing, because when you go sit in enough all-state meetings, and you hear a coach from Kansas City say so and so was the offensive lineman of the year in the Greater Kansas City Coaches Association, and here we are down here in SEMO, we don't have anything like that to say for our kids, and those rooms can sometimes be you got to fight. You got to fight for your kids, and you got to be in that room, number one, to even have an idea of what it takes to get a kid on the all-state team. And we just wanted to have more opportunities for our kids, and our Jeff go all the way down the boot hill. So when we do get those talented kids, we've got some more things we can say about them to make sure that they can get the honors they deserve. And then with all that, we want to kind of revitalize all the clinic stuff, and really just try to get everybody to get back to the game, and enhance the value of what it means to play high school football in the SEMO area.
I agree 100% with everything that you just said, Coach, and I do think that people sometimes forget that through the the length of a season, and kids that are playing, and they're giving their guts for it. You want to recognize those, and if we ever lose sight of the idea that we're here to help and promote kids, then we probably all should search for different jobs, right? So, that being said, Coach Tinker's in an interesting position right now, along with myself here in Jefferson County, where kind of we talked about it earlier before the show, just a kind of a no man's land. Where do we fit in? Because Coach Tinker is going to go north and play in the St. Louis Suburban Conferences, but we're going to be represented in the Southeast Missouri Area Football Coaches Association, and along with myself and you. And so really just Coach Tinker, talk to us a little bit about how you guys feel, and how and what you'd like to see as far as promoting your kids and being able to kind of fit in with where you think Fox football is headed.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question.
Mhm.
First of all, Judd, great job. He really did nail that. Like, we are the old guys now,
Yeah.
like with us being the old guys now. And there probably comes a little responsibility to kind of get things going also, and kind of reinvent things and get things going again. So I think Coach Naeger did a great job with that. Now, as far as our role goes, it has always been a very peculiar spot. The northernmost team in Jefferson County, playing in the St. Louis Suburban Conference. I've always joked St. Louis doesn't want us, and neither does either one anybody else. And that it does sometimes kind of feel like you're stuck right there in the middle. But ultimately, I feel like I would like to be as helpful as I can, because ultimately we are assigned to the Southeast Missouri area through Misha. So having the opportunity, and also having the relationships that I've been lucky enough to have, I actually know a decent amount of people down in the Southeast. So anything we can do, Coach Nager's right. Like, everybody sits in those meetings and said, "This is this guy." They all speak up for each other much better than our side of the state does, also. So getting those, I think they know each other maybe a little better. So if our association gets going a little bit more, we have a little more familiarity with each other. I think it only helps us, and being in the conference that I'm in, it may or may not help as much in those situations, but it doesn't hurt, and it's also enjoyable. I've enjoyed it. You wanted to get this going. I want to help in any way I can, not just because like the morality of trying to help and trying to help grow things, but also it's kind of been very enjoyable. And I think maybe an area of growth I'm either having or trying to have is just being a little bit more active and being a little bit more involved in things. From a personal standpoint, it's been fun just to kind of reconnect people, and from a professional standpoint, it's part of the job, but it's also just the right thing to do, I suppose, to represent the kids.
Sure. And I think there's a lot of topics that we've kind of covered over the last few sentences between Coach Nager and Coach Tinker. Number one is that you said revamp or revitalize the Southeast Missouri Football Coaches Association. And I'm not really sure, just over time, and as coaches age and they retire, and new guys fill in, sometimes the tradition or gets lost a little bit. And sometimes trying to find a person to put in charge of things, or having someone, in this day and age take the wheel and kind of move forward with stuff with their own families and everything they've got going on. It seems to be a little bit more difficult. So, uh, you know, getting everybody in the same room, I think, is important. And as you guys have stated, when you're in the all-state meetings, and you feel like there's more of a connection on the west side of the state between coaches than on the east side of the state, and that was one of the reasons for starting this show, is to get as many coaches from the area as we possibly could in to try to talk and see how everybody is feeling about kind of their team and where they fit in as far as the conferences are concerned, and basically just kind of build a rapport. And Coach Naeger mentioned another thing as far as the having the clinics, the in-person clinics, and on a smaller scale than maybe a Glacier clinic or things like that, but where it's a little bit more intimate, and you can kind of ask a little bit deeper questions and get some more information for all coaches, but especially for those guys that are new to the game, or they're just trying to learn, or they're trying to get their feet wet a little bit and trying to find something that's going to work for them and their team and the success that they have. So, if any of you guys have any input on that, or if you have something to follow up with, I'd like to hear.
Yeah, clinics have always been a large part, I think, of any successful coach. And you can certainly do it in so many different ways these days with Zoom and just with the internet in general. A mentor is just is your cell phone away, but we've just kind of lacked that for a while down in our area, and I think with some of the things that we're doing to make sure that we're getting everybody involved, and everything that we've done so far, it all kind of began with a survey to all the coaches, and I kind of wanted to make sure we got 100% back, which we did, and then the next thing we did was a board, and we were able to get everybody to vote on that board, and then we had our first board actual meeting over Zoom last Friday, so we were able to go through some things that weren't exponentially clear from the survey, and that's why we wanted a board to kind of answer those things that everybody was kind of on the fence about. And certainly the clinic is one thing that we feel needs to be a staple of any organization, when certainly increasing awareness and education of how to help kids more is there's not any real better setting than a clinic.
Certainly. Coach, without putting you on the spot here, do you know how many teams are compiling the Southeast Missouri?
It's either 38 or 39. I think it's 39. I think actually Saxony Lutheran became the 39 school. Now that with recent news of Chaffee and Scott City co-oping, then that's going to drop by one.
Sure. Okay. So, we're really talking about a very broad area here.
Yeah.
We're talking about from Coach Tinker being the farthest north at Fox High School, and then moving down, which I'm assuming this encompasses Cape Central High School, Poplar Bluff, and those schools. And Coach Tinker and I I started my career in Poplar Bluff, and he started his in St. Clair, and then we met up in Poplar Bluff. So, still having those relationships with coaches and even players that we've coached over the last 15 to 20 years, seeing those guys take over and starting to build programs and all of those things, it's very key. And Coach Tinker and I have talked multiple different times about everything that we do is to promote football, is to promote growth in our schools, and promote interest in football in our schools. And I think people want to talk about numbers, being down. Sometimes they get a little bit negative about that. And ideally, I think all of us would love to have 150 kids on the sideline, but the reality is that just doesn't happen. So, Coach, you have the most success out of everybody here on the panel. Talk about, you're at a school that doesn't have a ton of students. So talk about how many kids you have on your team, and kind of how that process starts with the Valley Catholic Warriors.
Yeah, I think success is kind of an I mean, it's a little bit harder to define. I know what Brent has done with Fox. I know how many kids he has outstanding relationships with. I know how much he's grown and helped kids grow. So I think wins and success aren't the same thing. But certainly to answer your question, we've got anywhere between 50 to 55 kids on our team. Year in and year out. Sometimes we have a small class. Like next year we're only going to have 4 or 5 seniors, but 20 or 25 juniors. So it just all kind of fluctuates, and we've really just kind of hovered around that spot right there for a while.
Coach Tinker, you are in a unique situation at Fox where you don't have junior high sports. So your 7th and 8th graders play in a feeder league, right? Correct. And the other county schools do have junior high sports, minus Seckman and Northwest.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit about some of those challenges, or maybe you don't see them as challenges. Maybe they're blessings in disguise, however you see it, and kind of how that process works as far as moving through Fox.
The biggest lesson for me life-wise on that has been just to control what you can control. I wish we could, ultimately long-term see some changes that could potentially bring middle school sports to Fox, Seckman, and Northwest. I'm pretty sure that they feel the same way, but I don't think that's right around the corner. And realistically, it may never happen, but I don't anticipate it happening during my career. And I would like to focus my energy on what I can control. So we have been lucky enough to kind of start a little league conference. It's kind of a head coach driven conference. And really, we talked about it off the air a little bit earlier. Football was played for a long, long, long time, with 8th grade football being the first team that everybody had. So, like, we're just going to focus on what we can control. We're going to focus on recruiting and finding. Basically, I should have been way more involved in my little league before I was. I leaned on Scott Nybert, my youth coach, for a long, long time. Then some things happened, and we ended up kind of rebranding a little bit. JCYA was a great thing for a long time, and I have nothing negative to say about it. But now we're Junior Warriors. We're 100% Fox kids. We do offer football 3rd through 8th grade right now. Our goal was never to run dads out of the business. We just really wanted to focus on where we were going, because a lot of times when you're doing any little league sport, some of those parents are the best assets you'll ever have. So we're going to focus on that. We're going to keep everything. We are keeping it unified, keep it driven, and focused on developing the high school athletic department as a whole. So yeah, there are ways to look at it negatively, but since it doesn't matter, there's really no reason to.
Certainly.
So our goal is to do what everybody else is doing. Like, we were talking about numbers at Valley, and there is an expectation at our school to have 3 teams. Realistically, we really don't want to see our numbers drop below 90. That's about what we'd like to have. You're going to be, for the most part, in my time there, we've been there or above. We have dipped under before, and it's not ideal. But like, we want to have 3 different teams. I think it's an expectation to have freshmen or a freshman 9-10 combo plus a JV plus a varsity. So, we're trying to use our little league to keep those numbers up, build those relationships with our youth coaches, and just kind of keep the kids coming.
You bring up a really good point there, Coach, about having 3 teams where you're playing a freshman schedule only with all freshmen. You're playing a JV schedule and you're playing a varsity schedule. Part of starting this show and doing these things is to try to get some information to people that may or may not know about kind of the inner workings of a program and building a program. And with the 2 of you sitting here, I exclude myself from the conversation. I inherited a program that I helped build from with Coach Robbins, but I was not the man in charge there. We had, as things progressed and moved on, I never felt like we lost anything, but there was a lot of things in place already that we just kind of kept rolling with. And now with this new position at Windsor, trying to get some interest going and trying to build and restore things the way that I see them needing to go. That's one of the first priorities, is to try to get all 3 teams competing. And as for information to give to parents, it's really important that if you're thinking about should I allow my student to play, or should we get involved? it is a meaningful piece to be able to promote freshmen with freshmen and junior varsity players with junior varsity players, where you get yourself into that conundrum where, okay, well, if we're just playing a 9 and 10th grade team, what do we do with the juniors that aren't playing varsity? Or if we're just playing a JV team, what do we do with the freshmen that aren't getting reps at the JV level? So, either way, if you don't have all three of those teams, you're some of your players are getting left out. And Coach Naeger, I'll ask you this question because I'm not sure how you guys are doing it at Valley, but if you have some insight or if you know
Yeah,
have some
we've had about every situation. We've been blessed where we've always had enough to have one one kind of underclassmen team, so to speak. But there's been years where we've had enough, to do both. Almost had enough to do both. So sometimes that resulted in playing an extra 2 quarters after the JV game to get some extra action for those guys. Or sometimes on certain weeks, if we felt like we could make it work, then we would have a JV game on Monday and then a freshman game on Tuesday. But I mean, that was very rare that we were able to do all three, and it's certainly a really good thing. It can be really hard on your staff too at times, depending on how many you have and your wives and your own families and stuff. So I just think you have to be creative, with the whole six. You're allowed to play six of those, quarters a week. I think there is some ways to be creative there. I know on the west side, some teams will play 3 12-minute quarters instead of 4 10-minute quarters,
okay.
which I think is something that teams in this area should explore, if they're worried about quarters. I am also on the MISHA advisory board team, and I've been trying for 2 years to push through the ideal of if your varsity game is a running clock the entire second half, to only count that as one actual quarter. We're still fighting that because if you look at the number of plays in a running clock second half game, there is fewer plays than there is in one quarter without the clock running. So it seems like it would make sense. It would also prevent, I've been on both sides of this, believe it or not, going back, but it would prevent those games where one team wants to get their starters out, but the other team the minute you do, they want to blitz and onside kick and do all these different things that can be very dangerous as well. So I think that if we can explore that some more and keep trying to figure out what the medical advisory board wants us, what more do they want us to prove to get that through? And ultimately, I think that's where it's kind of got stuck.
Coach, you just brought up two very good things that I had never considered personally myself, but again, I'm not involved in some of those conversations, but it does make sense. If we can limit the amount of time and limit the amount of quarters, especially if we are in a situation or your team's in a situation where you don't have enough to have all three of those teams and save players and keep them healthy, which is the name of the game for everybody sitting here is. Your best players have to be healthy at the end of the season, and I think football has, along with all of the other sports, is light years ahead of where it used to be as far as keeping youngsters healthy. But those are some things I'd be interested to see how that works out in the future as far as those topics were concerned. Because I really, Coach Tinker, had you heard any of that information?
No, not in depth. We've chatted through it a little bit, but sorry, my mind was kind of wandering there for a second on the topic, and I was actually going to ask you guys a question, kind of related, I suppose. And I guess I'll just put it like this: when a bind I've gotten myself in the past, and I'd like to know how you guys handled it. I want to have 3 teams, but it has to be 3 safe teams.
Certainly.
So like I actually went through a situation not long ago where we got 3 freshman quarterbacks hurt. It wasn't a lot of protection for those kids. So I've been in the situation where I desperately want to keep the third team going, but we've actually gotten more injured because of it. So have you been in that situation where you guys have had the physical numbers, but maybe not necessarily the ones that are ready to play?
Coach, I want to put some thought into that question. So it's time for us to take a break anyway. So I think when we come back from break, we can finish discussing that. And I think that's probably what we'll end up finishing the show with.
Right.
That's a pretty good outro there from Coach Freeman. We'll be right back. You're watching Beyond the Goalposts on Livestream STL. Lee's Lawn and Landscapes for all your residential and commercial landscape needs. Call for a free estimate. We would love to earn your business. Whether it be lawns, retaining walls, or decorating, home field advantage. 314-630-1872.
And welcome back to Beyond the Goalposts, the Jefferson County edition. My name is Lee Freeman, the head football coach of the Windsor Owls. Alongside me, Judd Naeger, head football coach of the Valley Warriors. And to his left, head coach of the Fox Warriors, Brent Tinker. Right before break, guys, we were talking about just health and safety of players overall, and sometimes whenever numbers are lacking or we have some kids that are banged up at the end of the season, some of the things that might be coming down the road for us possibly, or some of the things that have been looked into by the advisory committee, which Coach Naeger is a part of, limiting the amount of quarters, but extending the minutes of, or vice versa, those things. So looking at 3 12-minute quarters to try to save the amount of quarters that a player would be playing. And if there's anything that I'm missing about that, Coach, kind of the benefits versus the pros and cons of those things.
No, it just allows you to, play almost the same amount of minutes without having to count one extra quarter. Because it is sometimes hard if you've got a kid who's on a special team and maybe he's in on a package, and next thing you know, he's playing, 15 plays on a Friday night, but he's used all 4 of his quarters up.
Sure.
Or at least 4 of his 6 up for the week. So if you're playing 3 12s on Monday, which you can do now, then it allows him to get a larger part of the action on Monday night, and allows you to hopefully develop the kid, and allows you to keep mom and dad a little bit more happy, because ultimately that's one of our main jobs.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good point. And for anybody that's listening right now, if you are a football coach or you're a parent of someone, or a grandparent or family member of any player in the Jefferson County area or surrounding areas, I think there's some quality information that's being given here this evening. So I would encourage anybody in the Windsor Imperial Seckman area to listen in and see what kind of listen to the show and see what topics we're covering, because I think there's good information. Coach Tinker, we were talking about some of those things, and when we're talking about a lopsided game, or we're talking about a running clock situation in the second half, and kind of the decorum or the sportsmanship that needs to take place between coaches when those things are happening, and we have all been in a lopsided game, whether it was one way or the other, but sometimes those games are the ones that are a little bit more difficult to manage than close games. So with that being said, let's talk about some of the sportsmanship or decorum that we think needs to take place in order to keep kids safe.
Yeah, I think you guys, one of you mentioned it earlier, but I think we've all been on both sides of those, and they can be difficult to handle. Obviously, going back to the original conversation about having the counting quarters, I think there is an etiquette on trying to get some kids playing time. I think there's times I wish when I was on the winning side of those, I wish I'd have pulled the trigger a little bit earlier. But like going back to even the original context of the reason we're here, is I do think that will be improved overall if people know each other a little bit more, and there's just a little bit more out there. Personal relationships. There is a way to behave, and I don't think it's always been managed properly. I feel like lately I've dealt with a lot of veteran coaches. I really do. I don't feel like anybody has tried to run the score up really on us recently. The last couple of years we weren't as tough on the field as we had been in the past. My stance on that is I think that you don't get it, especially when you're on top. You can't get emotional. You want to have that turbo clock. You want to have all that, but remember that it's all about the playoffs. So protecting kids, even if that means they score a couple times, I think that's still keeping the bigger picture in mind is the most important thing. Not impulsively run your starters back in there. Um, typically, when you have a lead like that, the outcome of the game is not going to change. So getting your other kids some meaningful time, even as the winning team, is important. And then I do think that there's a difference when you're on when you're on the other side of it. I also think you're allowed to keep running your offense. You're allowed to keep doing things, keep trying to develop, keep trying to get better. If you happen to get some younger kids out there, I think it's important that your kids that they need to continue to act right and remember the situation. But it really is just a matter of relationships with your own kids and making sure they understand their situation, make sure they understand like what they're there for and where our end game is, but also just relationships across the sidelines. We've been really blessed lately where we've dealt with a lot of well-behaved people. So I think it just understanding the situation and understanding that like really in those situations, everybody just wants to go home healthy,
Certainly.
or even both sides. You want to go home healthy because there's always going to be a game next week.
And as you said, Coach Tinker, communication is the key. Communication not only with your players and the rest of your staff, but also with the coaches and staff across the field. You know, there's going to be times when going into a game where it's going to be a tightly contested game, but you also know there's going to be times when you go to the game and you're going to have a lot of challenges going up against an opponent, or vice versa, where if you play the way you're capable of, it's probably going to be a lopsided score. And nobody's surprising anybody nowadays with that type of competition that's going to occur. But the other thing is, what I notice in that, from where I sit, is the challenge it is for a coaching staff. You are so intent on what's going on play after play and situation that sometimes I've seen it happen in a lot of sports where coaches forget, oh, we're up by this much, I need to start thinking about pulling my starters out, because you're so focused, laser focused on that next play, the next package, and what we're going to do, that, oh, you're not even paying attention to the score, So I think that is an excusable thing for a lot of coaches. We have to remember as fans and as media that you're so focused, coaches are so focused on what's going on. They're not necessarily trying to leave their starters in there to run it up farther. I mean, if you're already a turbo clock, it's just that sometimes in that situation, you are so it's so myopic focus that you kind of forget a little bit, and I've seen that happen quite a bit. Guys, we've had great conversation today. I really hope that a lot of coaches and staffs will chime in and in the comment section and let us know some of the topics that they would like Coach Freeman to cover in the future. I think this benefits coaches as much as it does us, the fans, and I think we can all learn something here. But why don't we go through the panel and just get some final thoughts, Lee?
First of all, I want to thank Coach Tinker and Coach Naeger for coming in this evening and making this possible, because this is, again, it's always about educating people. It's always about educating kids and, and promoting football, in the area and just in general. So I want to thank those guys for donating their time this evening. I think, again, we've had great conversations. There's some good topics here. I think next time we'll have some different guests on the show, and then as far as Beyond the Goalposts is concerned, we're always going to try to educate, whether that be just X's and O's, or if that's something as far as parents and what parents need to be aware of as far as their students playing, and even players, what they can expect. So, Coach Naeger, if you had anything.
Yeah, just kind of be on the lookout. We're getting ready to launch social media for the SEMO Football Coaches Area Association. Some of the board members, Class 1 and 2, are Tim Schumer from St. Vincent's, Coach Atlee from up at Jefferson R7, and then Class 3 and 4 are Coach Russ Schmidt from DeSoto and Corey Schweiss from over at Park Hills, and then Class 5 and 6 are Coach Eckley and Coach Nesbitt, and then our retired member is Coach Stolzer, and those 7 guys will kind of make up the board, and I'm just kind of there as the mission advisory board member. as well as being on the board for the Missouri Football Coaches Association, just to kind of help them through some things. And then Chad Jamerson down at Dexter's kind of going to run the clinic. So that's kind of how it's all made up. And, I think it's good. I think we got a good team to start with, and, look for some good things coming out of that. And, end game, like we've all said, hopefully it helps to promote our sport in our area and helps kids.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, I appreciate you taking the lead on that. It really has been good. It has been good. You found the initiative, you took the initiative and got that going, which should help the whole region. From my personal stance, why I'm here, and just I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, Lee, thank
First
you.
of all, yeah, and really excited. I've been enjoying sports lately. I've been enjoying sports lately, and there's no doubt a lot of it's because my son has come of age, turned 12 yesterday. So happy birthday to Sam.
Happy birthday.
Lila's birthday is in December, but I'll happy
better say
birthday,
happy
Lila,
birthday.
too.
We'll have you back for that one.
Yeah, she's counting on it. But no, across the board, it's been kind of fun to see. We've had some deep playoff runs from the county, things that, like, I guess growing up, sometimes we had not gotten used to seeing these state championship victories or state championship semifinal appearances. This sports in the area have grown, and I'm excited about it as a fan, and as a local person. So just anything I can do to stay involved or promote it in any way. Always going to promote my high school. I've been at Fox longer than I've been anywhere in my life. So proud of them, very proud of our junior warriors, and anything we can do to kind of help grow the area and grow our town and our community. I want to plug into that. And nice to see you guys. I haven't seen you for a while. I don't see you enough. Life kind of gets us busy, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much, Coach. And that's going to conclude our episode, our inaugural episode, as Jeff pointed out. Instead of saying the first annual, which is that's a bugaboo of mine, and people say first annual, but the inaugural session. So
Our inaugural session. And Lee, before we get out of here, I want to give everybody an opportunity now, along with your sponsorship of your business, that this show, if anyone would like to sponsor out there, please give us a call, Livestream STL. We hope to grow this show and expand the range of topics. There's so many things that we can cover: football from a coach's standpoint, player standpoint, fan standpoint. So give us a call. There's sponsorship opportunities available for our Beyond the Goalpost show. For Ray Halbrook, Coach Tinker, Coach Naeger, and Lee Freeman, your host, this is Jeff Whitener for Beyond the Goalpost on Livestream STL.
Thanks for watching today's broadcast. Any unauthorized use of this broadcast without the express written consent of Livestream STL is strictly prohibited.